Georgieff Capital is a corporate finance advisory firm set up in 2005. We have offices in Frankfurt and in London, and we focus on providing independent corporate finance, M&A, and strategic advice. We also do work on capital raising advice for younger companies, particularly in the Cleantech area, and we also provide some equity capital markets advice for our clients. And I head up our Cleantech sector. These are some of the transactions that as a firm we've been involved with, working with a number of large established companies, mainly in the German-speaking world in terms of our general corporate advisory practice. Clariant being one of them, Swiss specialty chemical company. We advised them on a large takeover of a German company last year. In terms of Cleantech activity, these are a list of some of the companies we've involved with on the left in the corporate finance advisory side. We've also made some direct fund investments as an LP in 8 funds around the world, and made some direct co-investments alongside our GPs. Today I just wanted to give you an overall perspective of the Cleantech, or the M&A and Cleantech M&A environment. As you can see from this is the global M&A statistics. So you can see that in 2011, value of total global M&A deals fell by about 7%. In terms of value, 2.6 trillion from 2.8 trillion in the previous year, and about a 4% fall in the number of deals. So clearly, a cooling down in the market after the recovery in 2010, due to many factors, including general market uncertainty. And if you look at on the global basis, how does that compare quarter by quarter? You can see that the first 2 quarters of last year were very strong, and then there was a big fall off in Q3 and Q4 to levels really last seen during the sort of 2009 post-financial crisis era. How does Cleantech M&A compare with the global totals, and how does it compare in terms of the numbers? I mean, the first point to probably make is that Cleantech is a very small subset of global M&A. And the data we see is that in 2011 it was less than 2%, 1.6% of total M&A activity, although it's significantly increased in 2011. And that reflected, I think, a number of big corporates really becoming active in the sector, which is good news for companies looking to exit. If we look at what the quarterly picture in global Cleantech M&A was the first 3 quarters were great. A decline, a sort of broader decline, but they were pretty strong and record quarters compared to previous periods. Things fell off the cliff in the 4th quarter, for various reasons, but overall it was a pretty strong year. And then if we try to put Europe into perspective, and Europe here we're including Israel, how does Europe compare to global Cleantech M&A? And you can see that in 2011 Europe jumped significantly, and represented a very large portion of European M&A. So of global M&A. So 26 billion. That represented over 60% of the global Cleantech M&A in 2011, whereas in previous years it was much less. It was around a third. So you can see that Europe became very active in this last year, and we'll talk about we'll show you some of the transactions in a moment. And Europe, on a quarterly basis, you can see was the decline a little more pronounced than global Cleantech M&A. Very strong first quarter, very strong second quarter, and then a progressive decline in Q3 and Q4. What is the sector breakdown of activity? And this is by number of deals. So you can see that in Europe as a whole, the core key sectors were energy efficiency, which always comes up as a big sector in most countries. But that was 21% in 2010, 17% in 2011. Water and wastewater has become significantly more active during 2011, up to 18%. Solar remains, an area of investment and M&A activity. And then recycling and waste remains a fairly important part of it. So those are the sort of 4 key sectors within Europe and M&A activity. If we look at the geographic breakdown, so what are the key markets for M&A activity in Europe? We can see in terms of number of deals, it's the UK, Germany, and France, which account for more than 50% of M&A activity in the last 2 years. And then there are a number of other notable mentions, the Nordic countries, Benelux, who have been quite active recently as well. The picture clearly varies and gets quite skewed if you look at the value of deal, the split by country in terms of value of deals, because it all depends on a number of large deals that happen in any one time. So, for example, in 2011, France became by far became the largest market, in addition to the Nordic area, and that was due to a couple of very big transactions. So it's a little bit less empirical looking at the value, the deals by value in M&A rather than by number. But clearly, quite a few changes year on year. If we look at the top 10 M&A deals in Europe between 2010 and 2011, you can see that there are some significant transactions. You have obviously DuPont acquiring Danisco of Denmark, 6 billion transaction, Solvay acquiring Rhodia. We'll talk about Northumbrian Water a little bit when we talk about the UK, but you see a number of big corporates, General Electric making a big acquisition of Convert Team in France. You saw Toshiba acquiring Landis+Gyr of Switzerland. So there's some big, multi-billion dollar transactions in M&A in Europe over the last couple of years. So the activity level has certainly risen significantly. And I guess this is just an illustration. So we took 3 of the most active, or 3 or 4 of the most active European acquirers and said, well, who are they? What deals they can do? And you can see that Schneider Electric, large French conglomerate in energy management, has been highly active. You can see they've done 16 deals during 2010 and 2011, and 2 of those were over $1 billion, and then 5 or 6 of them were over 100 million. So these are big transactions and a high level of activity from Schneider Electric, which also has investments in the venture industry as well. You can see that another big acquirer is ABB. They've done 12 deals in 2010 and 2011, and a couple of big billion-dollar-plus deals. Ventex in the U.S., Baldor Electric Company in the U.S., and then a number of multitude of smaller undisclosed transactions. But and 2 others. This is obviously Siemens, German conglomerate, GE, US conglomerate, both pretty active in terms of the number of deals. I mean, particularly GE, we've seen that did the Convert deal transaction in France, 3.2 billion, and has also acquired a couple of other large companies. So that gives you a flavor for who are the acquirers and who are the big corporates who have stepped up to increase M&A activity generally. How does the UK compare in this picture? Well, you can see that in the UK, M&A activity jumped pretty significantly in 2011. However, that was largely due to the Northumbrian Water deal, so is a little, one could argue, a little bit unrepresentative. So in terms of the value of deals, there's a huge jump, 4 times jump from 900 million to 4 billion. But in terms of the number of deals of M&A activity in the UK, that was actually down 40% in 2011. So a mixed picture, I think, for the UK overall. And the UK if we compare the UK activity to the European activity, it was about 15% of total activity in 2011 and a little bit more. But remember, that compares to a higher percentage in terms of the number of deals of around 30%. So the UK, more of a mixed picture. And if we look at the quarterly figures for M&A in the UK, you can see that, again, the one quarter was the Northumberland Water deal, and the rest of the normalized levels, quarterly levels, were pretty much at or lower than last year's levels. So if you took out Northumberland Water, it would be a very different picture. By sector, it's a bit different. The UK focus in M&A sector. Energy efficiency, still the big one. Recycling and waste, water and wastewater, very big in terms of the sectors. But the one sector you see there hasn't been activity is in the solar, or it's very low compared to the rest of Europe, which is probably reflective of the policies and the companies that we have in the UK. Here's a quick profile. You may not be able to see this, of the top M&A transactions. Northumberland Water, as I mentioned, 3.9 billion. And then there are a number of other transactions across a range of sectors, including companies with technologies as well as project companies in the wind sector or the marine sector, but a fairly broad level of activity. So with that will conclude my discussion. I think overall I would say, in terms of the exit environment, I think the good news for companies is that there are a large number of corporates that are getting interested in clean technology and understanding that this is a real growth area and are prepared to invest significant amounts of capital to catch up or to fix gaps in their product or service portfolio. And therefore, if you fit their criteria, it could still be a very good time for you to achieve an M&A exit. I think generally, obviously, with these markets, it's M&A exits, the private equity is a little more challenging given where the debt markets are. But as an exit strategy, I think the M&A market is still probably the best bet for a lot of companies today. Thank you.
Please. How many of those UK acquisitions were by the four very active corporate clients that you mentioned earlier?
Well, let's have a look. Actually, none of them. None of them in this list. I mean, Veolia it wasn't one of the lists they're very active in smaller transactions as a big, conglomerate, but we didn't have them on the list. No.
I have one question for you as well.
Sure.
If you're a clean tech company, how do you get onto the radar, and how do you do your exit in the most favourable terms? Do you wait for the large corporate to find you, or how do you tee it up?
Well, I think it's part of the process, right? I mean, I think you don't just wait for something to happen, right? It's part of the planning process. I think the best way, in many respects, is to develop the relationship in a real way, whether it's some sort of commercial relationship, they're a distributor of your products, and there's some they get to know you, and therefore they're the natural exit point. So I think it's a question of keeping in touch and really developing the relationship. And you'll find a number of these big corporates have in-house venture arms, so you can, and they're quite commercial. They're not asking to take everything from you. They're investing on an arm's length basis. They're not asking for a first right of refusal. So you can always get them as an investor, and then they know you. So a variety of strategies, but I think a proactive rather than reactive strategy.